I'm continuing to investigate Roger Morneau. Here are the books again. I recently just ordered 3 more of his books. I looked on Amazon and see that they list under Roger J. Morneau that he has, I think, 7 books. I think there are 3 books on prayer, Incredible Answers to Prayer, something prayer, maybe a revised edition or just another incredible prayer book. We have A Trip into the Supernatural, we have Charmed by Darkness, and we have Beware of Angels. And there might be a different variation of one of those books, but Charmed by Darkness is the full transcript version of A Trip into the Supernatural. I have stacks and stacks and stacks of Poltergeist books because I experienced Poltergeist activity firsthand. This is coming out of left field and off the wall to people who are unfamiliar with Poltergeist activity. It's as exotic and unfamiliar as ball lightning, if you will, as Roger's story of this impossible secret society. So I understand when I tell people, I experienced 6 months of poltergeist activity in 2011, and I researched hundreds of hours on Google, hundreds of hours on YouTube, hundreds of hours on the internet in general, because I wanted to find someone else that experienced something similar to me. I didn't start with 6 months of poltergeist activity. As a matter of fact, I never typed that in. I typed in keywords like poltergeist, spirit, demon, until I found Roger Morneau's interview, his first interview for A Trip into the Supernatural. I never heard of him until at least 1 or 2 years after my 2011 poltergeist incident, which lasted for 6 months. I'm not going to detail my 6-month encounter. I have multiple videos talking about that. This is about Roger Morneau. And people watching this video are probably more interested in Roger Morneau. Understandably, that's what this is all about. This is video 3 of the Supernatural Secret Society that Roger Morneau joined and left in 1946 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So, in the last video, I was talking about a piece of paper levitating, flying, and floating around Roger's room. But let me just tell you, when I found Roger's video, 1 or 2 years after my incident, and I'm watching, and we're talking 2 hours into the video, some extremely high length. I think it's 2 hours and 40 minutes into the video. It's a very long interview. It's like a 3-hour long interview, 3.5 hour, whatever. It's a very long interview. And 2 hours and 40 minutes into it, somewhere around there. I have the timestamp saved on my computer because for years I've been trying to find where Roger said the word 6 months, the phrase 6 months. Because I read all his books, I watched all his interviews. In your mind, when you read all of someone's books, and he adds a lot of detail in his books that he doesn't add in the interview. And vice versa. He has a lot of detail in the interviews that he doesn't add in the books. And so I jumbled the information of 6 months, not knowing if it was in the video or the book. So it's taken me years to track down where he said 6 months. It's in his original interview, about 2 hours and 40 minutes into it, which is why it was hard for me to find it, because I have watched his videos many, many, many times, but I've only watched his original interview from front to back twice. But I've listened to, 30 minutes here, 40 minutes there, 30 minutes here, 40 minutes there for years. Never the whole thing front to back, but I had to do that to find where he says 6 months. I will splice it in this video. Here, I'm just going to show you right here and right now where Roger says he experienced poltergeist activity for 6 months after he left this supernatural secret society.
After the demon left you that Saturday night, did you have any more demon harassment over the next few months, or was it just over instantly?
No, it was not over instantly. Every night, the spirits knocked on the walls, knocked on the doors. I was awakened 2 or 3 times a night. But they were trying to reopen conversation with me. The Lord would not allow them to bother me in any ways, except that they tried to have communication with me. And that, it seems that the Lord, see, the Creator has given us freedom of choice. You can choose good or choose evil. You see, that's your prerogative. It's a freedom that He has given us, which is beautiful, freedom of choice. Well, of course, the enemy of the Lord says, hey, I want access to it. At least you can allow me to knock on the door. If he responds, you lost him. He's mine. So I knew that very well. And it went for 6 months that the spirits knocked every night.
Did you wonder why they were continuing to do that?
Oh, yeah. I said, hey, thank you, Lord. That's all you allowed them to do. You know, they would love to destroy me, bring the ceiling down and the whole building on me, for that matter. But I said, I figured to myself, this is the thorn in the flesh. See, I'd read 2 Corinthians. The Apostle Paul says, because of the abundance of the revelations that he had received from God and all that, he says, there is given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. You know, because the fallen human heart just loves to think good of itself and becomes proud and vain and sin against its creator. And the Apostle Paul says, I'm going to pray about it. He said, for this thing I besought the Lord thrice. 3 times he prayed about it. And the Lord told him, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Isn't that beautiful? So the apostle said, therefore, most gladly will I rejoice in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. And I said the same thing to the Lord. Lord, if you want these critters to, you know, be after me all the days of my life and knock and wake me up every night, that's okay with me. That's the least I could put up with, you know.
So when did it stop?
Well, one prayer meeting, the minister says, how's things going? He says, with your Christian walk. I said, sir, couldn't go any better. He says, I'm glad for you. This was after the prayer meeting, we're just leaving. And he said, no problem with the spirits at all, huh? Oh, the spirits, well, yeah, they're trying to open communication with me all the time. You knock every night, they wake me up. You do? How can you put up with that? There's no other way. Oh, no, he says, wait a minute now. He says, it's my fault I didn't tell you this. He says, the spirits have an open avenue to you that God cannot close. As long as you have in your place the literature that you, or some of the things that you had to do with spirit worship. Do you have anything like that in your place? Oh yeah, I got 3 books. Then I got some incense. And I got some candles. Well, he said, get rid of all this mess, and you're not going to be bothered with the spirits anymore. I'm sure of that. Well, I did exactly what he told me. Stopped completely.
That 6-month detail is an anecdote, and it doesn't have much context, and it doesn't mean much to hardly anyone on planet Earth, if anything to anyone but me and anyone else who has also experienced 6 months of poltergeist attacks, activity, harassment, whatever you want to call it. I consider it all of the above. It was an attack, it was harassment, it was malicious, it was terrifying, it was horrific, which is why I talk about it over and over and over and over. You can liken what happened to me to a survivor of a horrific, tragic event, and that person rehashing the horrific, tragic event over and over and over and over and over. I've been asked by people, why do you talk about it so much? Because it's the equivalent of the most horrific thing you can think of happening to you and changing your life forever. That's why I talk about it over and over and over and over, ad nauseum, to an extreme length, until people are bored and sick of it. Even I'm bored and sick of it, but I still buy Poltergeist book after Poltergeist book, Spiritism book after Spiritism book, every single one of Roger Morneau's books, except for, I believe, one book on prayer. And I haven't read his books on prayer yet. I just ordered 3 of his books. One of his books I ordered is called Beware of Angels. I'm going to talk about that in a future video. But let's get back to the floating piece of paper in Roger's room. He has a piece of paper, folds it in half, uses it as a bookmark in his Bible. He's probably a couple pages into the Bible. Piece of paper folded in half as a bookmark. He opens it up in preparation to read it. The bookmark, the piece of paper, is levitated by a poltergeist demon. The poltergeist demon proceeds to walk around the room just to show Roger where he is, his poltergeist abilities, to scare Roger. Roger probably does what I did to the best of my ability and ignored it. The first time I experienced poltergeist activity, I immediately knew it was a negative entity of intelligence. Immediately. Within the split seconds of the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to communicate with that. I know what that is. I know what you are. From the perspective of someone who's never experienced it, they see it as an anecdotal story, just a fairy tale, some type of cartoon. It's not real. Fantasia, Disney, Mickey Mouse waving a wand and the brooms cleaning up. That's the only context of me ever seeing poltergeist activity in the mainstream, is Disney's Fantasia with a wand and just a joke, or in a movie that's over the top like Poltergeist. I think the movie Poltergeist itself is a disservice to anyone researching poltergeist activity, as my alert on the word poltergeist 9 times out of 10 has to do with the movie and not the phenomenon. The piece of paper is flying around the room. Why do I mention the piece of paper so much? Because Roger mentions the lawyer fed pieces of paper into the typewriters for the demon poltergeists to type up these legal briefs, because that was his requested gift. That was his requested blessing. Every member of the secret society gets one requested gift blessing. Roger picked clairvoyance. Roger went to the horse races after receiving a dream a few days prior on who's going to win, on which horses are going to win the race. But the lawyer has to feed in paper? Why would the lawyer have to feed in paper? These poltergeist demons can pick up the paper and feed it in themselves. Proof. The poltergeist demon in Roger's apartment picked up a piece of paper and flew it around the room. Really, it's just walking around the room with it, doing this. I mean, if you could see the entity, you just see a person doing this. You know what I mean? It'd be a lot less scary if you could see the person doing it. Poltergeists know that they're invisible. They can see that they're invisible to us, but they're not invisible to themselves. So to themselves, I'm sure it looks a little funny. It'd be much like being a vampire. If you were a poltergeist demon and you look in the mirror, there's nothing there. These entities, they can manifest hands optically invisible, and they can manifest hands that are visible, but they rarely do so. They rarely choose to do so, or rarely have the ability to do so. See, we don't know the difference between their abilities and what they choose and this and that. There are laws of the universe that govern these things, but we don't know the laws exactly. You can perceive the laws from firsthand experience, and you can gather a vague concept of the laws from stories. But until it happens to you firsthand, you don't know how literal and how figurative and symbolic and allegorical and just mythological these stories are until you see them firsthand. But the demons could have fed in the paper perhaps on some ego trip. The poltergeist demons wanted to sit back and have this human be their servant for a few seconds as he fed in the papers, or maybe he has an assistant feed in the papers, but that assistant would have had to have been a member of the secret society. Only 100 members. Not too many humans can witness poltergeist activity, levitation, for example, and not go a little bit crazy. At least sound a little bit crazy. I guess I will cut off a little bit to talk about my experience. Super briefly. On April 11th, 2018, these wires levitated in my room by a poltergeist around 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., that window, that time frame. I think I looked at the clock, and I think it said 10 p.m., 9:50, 10:30, something like that, something around that time frame. I remember noting to myself that it was earlier than the 11 p.m. Incident that happened on February 17th, 2010. That was the beginning of all this supernatural stuff with me. That's why I memorized the date. I'm trying to memorize this date, April 11th, 2018. I wrote it down. I found the date because I remember it was 2 days before a live stream. I was basically inviting an entity to perform setting off meters, and I basically asked it if it could knock something over, like a poltergeist, for video evidence for my audience. Spirits, poltergeists, demons, whatever you want to call them, but entities with the ability to move objects, they're not going to do it on command. And if they do it on command, they're going to expect something in return. Just an example of them expecting something in return. My original Corners of Rooms experiment, an entity set off the REM pod, just a simple theremin type device which goes beep, beep when you put your hand close to it. A spirit entity set that off multiple times. And I thought, wow. First, I thought I was freaked out. I was like, well, at least I didn't waste my money. This thing works. Freaky. I shouldn't have done this experiment in my room. Now I got to go to sleep. I went to sleep. Nothing happened that night, luckily. I went to sleep the next night, and a negative entity of an extreme negative vibe, sounds like a hippie term, but all I can say is 24 hours approximately after that experiment, I turned off the light, put the blanket over me, put my head on my pillow, and within seconds, this had to be the same entity. Had to be the same entity. It was a price that the entity thought, apparently, for setting off the REM pod, this is the price I had to pay. I thought I was subjected to this fee. And what was the fee? The fee was the entity walking through my body, and my body feeling extreme negativity or pain, horrific sense of dread. It was definitely pretty scary, but just the creepy, gross vibe of one of these entities walking through your body. That price isn't worth it. I didn't think the price for a REM pod going off would be that. I researched, come across that guru that's all over, plastered all over YouTube. I'm not going to mention his name, doesn't matter. You saw the video I posted. I'm not trying to kiss up to the guy. I'm not trying to advertise the guy. I don't follow the guy's mystic teachings in any way, shape, or form. I just watch his videos from time to time. Came across one of his videos where he said he pointed at an apple and it fell. Or he did something vague, like looked at an apple and it fell. And then he got a neighbor to witness this. He's like, watch what I can do. Fall. And the neighbor's like, it's just gravity. Those are ripe apples. They're going to fall anyway. They're eventually going to fall. It's just a coincidence. And he said, watch this. Fall, 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 until like 10 apples in a row, exactly on cue, on command. And the neighbor's like, wow, that's pretty freaky, dude. And this guy, approximately 24 hours later, felt a negative entity walk through his body. See, that was the price he had to pay for the entity doing the work of dropping the apple. It was a poltergeist demon dropping the apple. But it was a poltergeist demon tempting him with the illusion of him having some magical telekinesis power of dropping the apple. There's always a price to pay when it comes to these negative entities. Roger Morneau did say his parents taught him there's always a price to pay. When you go to the dark side, there's always a price. And sometimes that price is too high. That's my takeaway anyway. And most definitely the price was too high. Now, am I scarred for life? Spiritually, to an extent, perhaps. Psychologically, emotionally, to an extent, perhaps. It's a price not worth it. Am I physically harmed? No, I seem to be all right. I seem to be physically okay. I had a Corners of Rooms experiment. I had experiment 1, experiment 2, experiment 3. Even despite the entity walking through me, I still did experiment 2 a couple days later. Bad choice. I had these experiments for like a month, not a month straight, but I did have an experiment go for like 2 days straight. A couple devices went off. Nothing major. We're talking literally just a couple devices went off of me filming for almost 2 days straight. But the biggest thing I ever experienced ever since my 2011 incident, this is a huge tangent, I apologize, but I bagged these wires and wrote down what these wires are because it's a relic of my life. I witnessed these wires levitated on my desk, and my desk was a good 6 to 8 to 10 feet away from me. I saw these wires levitated by what looked like an invisible hand. Couldn't see the hand, could only see the wires. And then I saw these wires dropped on this very desk right here. The location was approximately right here. I'll make a reenactment or whatever in the future perhaps. But the wires were sitting totally flat, approximately right here. I don't know if you can see a good picture of that. And then I'm on Netflix on my bed watching a Netflix TV show. One of the recommended top 10 Netflix TV shows. Can't remember what it was. Not particularly interesting. Took off my headphones to take a break. And I saw these wires already levitated about this high. The wires were levitated about this high. And they were dangling. Their full length. Now, it might have been this high, might have been this high, might have been this high, might have been this high. Whatever the case, they were dangling. And then, as I watched them for a few seconds, almost like the second the poltergeist noticed I was watching, it dropped them. And the sound it made residually as the wires are clanking against my desk sounded something like that. So I bagged them, and it's evidence for me, but it's not evidence for you. It's an anecdotal story for you. It's a foreign concept. It's just a third-party thing. It's just something someone is saying. So you have to have a healthy skepticism in your life. Do I believe everything Roger Morneau said, verbatim, word for word? Based on the 6 months of poltergeist activity he experienced and the 6 months of poltergeist activity I experienced in 2011, it's too huge of an occult secret and coincidence. See, this 6 month information I could have kept to myself the rest of my life. But I choose to reveal it with the hopes that maybe there's one other person out there. I could tell you this, There is a TV show, I think it was the HR person. I think it was the human resources. I think it was the person that is in charge of hiring cast members for a ghost hunting show. I gave the most succinct, tiny, brief, 30-second version of what happened to me in 2011, my 6-month poltergeist encounter. And they said, wow, that sounds really similar to this case we're doing a show on. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I'd like to learn more about that. I never hear from the lady ever again. I never hear about the case. I Google it trying to find it, can't find it anywhere. She didn't say it exactly was 6 months. I wish I would have got a follow-up because, see, these people in the entertainment business, they think I'm in the entertainment business. They think I'm making it up for a show and a dance to be a TV show writer, movie writer. They don't know. Perhaps actual supernatural experiences are a foreign concept to them if they're an extreme skeptic. Or even if they believe that I believe it, they'll think I'm crazy. I believe you believe it. I've heard that so many times, I consider it extremely disrespectful, beyond patronizing, to the point of, no. I don't care that you believe that I believe it. I believe that you believe in nothing. I believe that you don't believe in anything. I believe that you are a nihilist. All right? I believe that you believe that there's nothing, that all of human emotions are the result of a Big Bang. I believe that you believe whatever you see on the Science Channel, and the science experts will tell you ghosts don't exist. You Google ghosts. Are ghosts real? Google will tell you ghosts aren't real, ghosts don't exist, spirits aren't real, spirits don't exist. There's no scientific data, there's no scientific evidence. There's a crud load of scientific evidence. There's a crud load of scientific data. Here's one of my static meters. A spirit has set this off on 5 or 6 different nights at the same location. A location built in the 1830s has never had power. If a scientist were to make their own static meter, bring their own static meter of any professional level, I believe they could get results. But we're talking about fallen angels here. They're not exactly going to comply and do anything you ask them to without a price to be paid. Back to Roger Morneau. Perhaps I'll have to edit out some of that lengthy personal tangent. So what gift was Roger given? Clairvoyance. He's given the gift of seeing the horse races in advance. The winning horses in advance. He tests these visions out, goes to the horse race, puts like $1 down on the first vision he already knows is going to win, but he's not too confident in the vision. He thinks maybe it was a daydream. I don't know, maybe it was... Because it's the first time he's receiving this clairvoyance, trance-like, demon spirit information. So he's very skeptical of it. Puts down $1, wins. Puts down $5, wins. Puts down $20, wins. Starts to realize he's going to put down $100, wins thousands of dollars. How many thousands? Probably a very low amount. He probably won $2,000 until he got scared off. The owner of the horse races got to know him on a first name basis, asked for him by name, said, "Is that Roger guy here? Oh, you see him? Let's call him into the office." They call him in to the office. They call him in because he's about to put $100 on a winning horse, and they don't want him to win for the 10th time in a row, or whatever time in a row it was. Enough time for them to be suspicious. Just like a casino, when someone goes to the tables and wins $10,000 one day, $10,000 the next day, $10,000 the third day, the owners are going to start kicking the guy out. Doesn't matter if the guy's cheating or not, that person is most likely going to be banned from the casino because you're supposed to lose. The house is supposed to always win eventually. So people that do win big at the casino in Vegas, they do get kicked out and banned whether they're cheating or not. They'll assume you're a card counter. They'll assume you're using some trick or some gimmick. They'll assume you have some inside information. They will kick you out if you win too much, too often. because they see the odds. They see everyone loses. They see someone gets lucky once and wins once. Okay. When someone wins twice, it really catches their attention. Roger won many times in a row. He didn't lose, ever. As soon as they got attention on Roger winning every horse race, they started paying attention. This guy always wins. They sit Roger down in the office. The guy is circling Roger. It says, "You don't look that smart. You don't look that smart." He's a 21-year-old kid. He's like, "You don't look smart enough to know how these horses work, to know how these horses train, to know which horses are going to win, which are going to lose. You don't look smart enough to know this information about these horses, to have won 10 times in a row. You don't look that smart. You're getting inside information. How are you getting it? Either way, you're out of here. Don't come back here or we're going to kill you." They threatened a bullet in his head. So that greatly discouraged Roger. He never went back. The guy said, "I know all the bookies in town. I'll give you their names. Go somewhere else. Win somewhere else. You're not going to win our hard-earned money at this place again. I don't want to see your face here ever again." So they did threaten him to an extreme degree. I, too, would have ran away from that situation. That's pretty scary. All right, you don't... I mean, I've heard of casinos kicking people out. But, there are some horror stories of Vegas casinos taking people to the basement and beating the life out of them, or close to it, and then kicking them out. So, when the mob ran Vegas, they did stuff like that, when people won too often. Even when people just won a lot, honestly, stuff like that did happen, and the mob ran Vegas. So I could see the mob running the horse races, or rough people running the horse races, even in Montreal in 1946. So that probably played a factor in Roger wanting to leave the secret society. Let's face it, the one gift they give him, he can't use it anymore without risk of getting beat up or worse. So I'm sure that did play a factor. Let's face it, that played a factor, okay? I'm sure he could have brought it up to the priest, and the priest might have been able to make some arrangements with Roger winning regularly at a different horse race or in a different capacity. The interviewer said to Roger, they could have worked with the stock market probably. And Roger said, yeah, it probably could have worked with anything. Modernly, it could have worked with the lottery, perhaps. That is something I question. Can spirits see who's going to win the lottery? See, negative entities are invisible. Poltergeist entities have the ability to move things. Poltergeist entities literally have the ability to cause a horse to run faster than other horses. So, were the poltergeist demons giving Roger insight into the future on what's going to happen just naturally? Or did the demons rig the races for the horses to win in Roger's behalf? Because demon spirits can do a lot, all right? Demon spirits could literally, manifest minimally to scare a horse into not running. They could whisper the voice of the trainer's voice in the ear of one of the horses to slow down. They could flick one of the horses to intimidate it. They could greatly rig the race by causing certain horses to run fast and certain horses to run slow. They could. Demon poltergeists definitely have that ability. If anything, probably one of the easiest things to manipulate for these entities would be a horse race. But the lottery is a different story. The lottery is a lot more random. Unless we're talking about the balls popping up in that ball machine, the Powerball. I could see a poltergeist demon being able to levitate a ball into the Powerball machine. Most definitely they could. Demons don't like to benefit human beings unless they get something greatly in return. So Roger wasn't getting all these blessings and then just sitting back and smoking a cigar. Roger left a lot out of the story. You see the cover of the original book right here? You see the two black candles? Roger Morneau had probably two black candles. He mentioned he had candles in 3 books. I suspect they were 2 black candles, at least. Maybe more black candles. Maybe they were regular white candles. It doesn't matter what color the candles are. But the ritual involves you set up the candles, you have a black mirror or a shiny surface in a pitch black room. You light the candles, you look at the shiny surface. It could be a black mirror, it could be a television turned off, it could be many things. You repeat a mantra, or you just start to open a communication with spirits. Spirits come through, you can communicate firsthand. Roger was worshiping these demon spirits outside of the secret society building. It's something he didn't want to repeat. He doesn't want anyone to repeat his mistakes, okay? It's a mistake he paid dearly. 6 months of poltergeist activity was one of the consequences of that mistake, and he repented for that mistake the rest of his life. I think most definitely Roger did his best to over the top overcompensate for a bad thing he did, with the rest of his life doing as much good as he could possibly do. I think it's why he wanted to help people in similar supernatural circumstances: possession, hauntings, oppression, attacks from poltergeists. I guarantee if Roger was alive today and I contacted him, he would probably want to help me out or give me a positive response of encouragement, of reassuring me everything's going to be okay. Just focus on the positive, ignore the negative. That's what I get out of Roger's books. That's what I get out of Roger's speeches. So Roger did do a good thing. I see Roger as a good person. I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm never going to be a Seventh-day Adventist. It's never going to happen. And that doesn't mean Roger's story and message isn't worthwhile and worth paying attention to and listening to for non-Seventh-day Adventists. Non-Seventh-day Adventists can still get a great amount of insight into Roger's story. It's why I keep coming back to it again and again. It's a unique story, but the 6 months of poltergeist activity isn't unique. Happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to other people. Similar to other traumatic experiences, I'm just going to say victims of attacks, all right? These victims, all I can speak of is about poltergeist activity. And because it's such a foreign concept, people assume I'm talking about humans attacking me, and I replace the memories with spirits or some nonsensical replacement. Nope. I've never been physically attacked on any extreme level by any human being. I've been in a couple fights as a kid. Sure, I've been in a couple scuffs here and there as an adult, but nothing huge, nothing major, nothing where anyone went to jail, nothing where any charges were pressed, nothing big, no problems. All is forgiven. No big deal, everything's fine. See, I've never experienced anything to an extreme degree, to the point where I thought, perhaps these experiences happened to me because nothing of really noteworthy negativity has ever happened to me. Perhaps I've lived such a cushy life that's why I had poltergeist activity for 6 months. I have a lot of theories of why I experienced it, but this is about Roger. I think Roger worshipped with the black candles and these devil worship books in his room privately with the lights off and the candles lit for multiple weeks, if not multiple months. That's the real sin Roger committed, was the worshiping privately of these demons. And sure, going to the demon worship house, going to the worship room of the gods, and like Roger says, admiring the painting of Lucifer on many occasions. That's unusual. For him to admire that painting on many occasions means he went on many Wednesdays. What is many Wednesdays? It's up to interpretation. Could be 10 Wednesdays, could be 20 Wednesdays. In which case, how many months is that? It's a great period of time when you're a non-religious person that doesn't go to church. You're automatically going somewhere 10 times, for a couple months. He could say that is many times. His story is definitely not subtle. He saw a painting, a full-bodied painting of Lucifer with a gigantic marble altar underneath it. And that marble altar, we hear the priest tell Roger, was levitated into the room. Roger basically says, wow, that's a gigantic marble altar. How many tons does that weigh? That looks like it weighs 2 tons. Looks like it weighs 4,000 pounds. How did you get that gigantic marble stone in this room? It doesn't look like it would have been easy. The priest says he was levitated in by the spirits. And Roger, paints a very vivid image of how this stone was levitated in. Wow. Pretty interesting. But we never get to see that. Roger never got to see that. So be skeptical of anything Roger didn't see with his own eyes or experienced in his own trance. I take Roger's trance of seeing the horses glow in a vision, in a dream, a couple days before he goes to the horse races and wins on the glowing horses in his vision, the clairvoyance given to him by the Spirit. See, this is an actual spirit worship secret society where the spirits actually exist and the spirits actually give gifts. It's not a gimmick or a trick or a pyramid scheme. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's the real thing. If what Roger says happened, happened. This is a giant if for non-believers, but I'm a believer. I'm a very skeptical person. I'm known as the hoax hunter. Extremely skeptical. I don't walk down the street looking for coincidences like Mel Gibson's character in the movie Conspiracy Theory. I don't buy a bunch of Catcher in the Rye books because I see them, I have to buy them. I prefer books like Roger's that focus on stories that are at least purported to be completely true. I focus on nonfiction, just what I focus on. But the visions Roger gets, the trance-like state, the vision, the dream-like state, getting information. I've read about that and heard about that many times by actual occultists, by magicians, by sorcerers, by witches that claim they get information the exact same way. So Roger described exactly how clairvoyance works in reality. So if he didn't have those experiences, he researched them. I believe he did have those dreams. I believe he did bet on the horses that were in those dreams. And he did win based on information given him by negative entities. Negative entities aren't going to give you the winning lottery numbers unless they choose you specifically to get those lottery numbers, because they want to see how you will use that money to progress their goals. If negative spirits see you as a puppet ripe for the picking and using for their own benefit, for their own means, then perhaps they will give you winning lottery numbers. But short of that, or short of having a price to pay in return, you're not going to get clairvoyance with winning any lottery numbers. There are literally millions upon millions, tens of millions of people every day who wish for good luck to win the lottery, not realizing that they're not going to win. And that's not how you win. The jazz musician, we still don't know his identity. We probably will never know his identity. The jazz musician. Let's go back to the jazz musician for a second. When Roger said the jazz musician was famous, we got to be a little skeptical of that. Okay, the jazz musician was famous to Roger. Okay, so that I interpret that as locally famous in Montreal, Quebec, Canada in 1946. That's how I interpret it, because we got to interpret the information. And we also have to assume that the jazz musician was speaking French. Roger spoke French. Roland, Roger's friend, spoke French. Everyone at the secret society, the 100 members, all spoke French. This was a French secret society, or a French-speaking secret society. At one point, Roger says, all of these conversations took place in French. French is my first language. I could barely even write in English. When I was asked to write the book, Roger's response was, I don't know if I can even write properly in English. It's not my first language. They said, give it a shot. Give it a shot anyway. I'm actually greatly surprised Roger's book isn't published in French. Or perhaps there are French versions, but I am surprised. I'm surprised he didn't write the book in French. It's interesting. There are red flags all over the place, but there are flags that appear to be red, which you can explain away. You could say anyone giving excuses for this and excuses for that is an apologist, but I'm not an apologist for Roger Morneau. I'm not defending on any level for any personal motivational reason. I'm not a member of his church. I'm never going to be a member of his church. I'm literally an outside observer. The biggest connection I have to Roger is the 6 months of poltergeist activity. That's it. I don't think Roger read about 6 months of poltergeist activity in a book. I don't think Roger watched a movie with 6 months of poltergeist activity. So that's one of the reasons I, to an extreme degree, believe Roger's 6 months of poltergeist activity. Tiny piece of information added into a story. Not added, but it's true. It's just a tiny piece of a story proving it's true to me. I wish I could prove this information to you. I wish I could prove to you I experienced 6 months of poltergeist activity. No matter how many thousands of dollars of ghost hunting equipment I buy, no matter how many ghost investigations I go on, no matter how many EVPs of spirits coming through saying, yes, we're here, we're spirits, no matter how many meters go off, the diehard skeptic will never believe, ever. It's just never going to happen. There are permanent never believers out there. They exist, and you really can't fight it. There's black, there's white. There's red, there's blue. There's up, there's down, there's gravity. I assume there is anti-gravity. But I don't think these demon spirits are using anti-gravity to levitate objects. I think they're manifesting hands somehow, picking up objects. Roger does say briefly that these spirits are disguising themselves as intergalactic aliens when they're not. They're just demon spirits putting on a guise of this and of that. He doesn't go off on UFOs or anything like that, but it's a simple conclusion to come to, that flying saucers are nothing other than demon spirits. I think demon spirits have the ability to grab a cloud and turn that cloud into any shape they want and float that cloud over any airspace they want. Military, restricted, forbidden, whatever the case. They can do more than just move a cloud. They could lift a physical object, move it around. It would just be a gigantic version of picking up plates in someone's kitchen and throwing it around. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility. They can appear as angels of light. Roger said, the priest of this secret society went to Chicago. Whenever Roger mentions something, it really sticks in my head, okay? Chicago has to be the next closest focal point for this secret society. So if the secret society isn't in Montreal, Quebec, Canada anymore, and I am still trying to pinpoint the building, I have an idea of which building was used. But I think that building is cleared out, perhaps 100% empty right now, perhaps owned by different people, perhaps owned by the same organization. It's just a theory and it doesn't matter to any great degree. But if I'm ever in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, you can be sure I'm going to be picking up a meter and I'm going to be putting that meter on the sidewalk as I legally walk around what I believe to be the building. I'm going to walk all around Montreal, Quebec, Canada, downtown, the Golden Square Mile. I'm going to walk through it as many alleyways and crevices as I could find, which are legal to do so in the public setting of the broad daylight during regular hours, and perhaps later on, at night, we will see. But I've never been there. I don't have the means and ability to get there at this point. Perhaps in the future, I'll be able to investigate the city of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I've only been to Chicago via the airport, because when you fly somewhere, you got to go through O'Hare. We got to go through Chicago's airport. It's like a gimmick to get you to go there so they get some funding, whatever the case. I've only been to Chicago's airport. I've never been outside of Chicago's airport when I was in Chicago, other than flying over Chicago. I saw over Chicago at night, the lights, definitely a gigantic city with an immense number of houses. So to track down a secret society in a place like Chicago would be extremely difficult. But I do believe there are still connections to Chicago and this secret society to this day. Even revealing this information, I think, is giving a lot away, because I buy books of the occult nature because they were published in Chicago, trying to track down this secret society. And not surprisingly, there are tons of occult books having been published out of Chicago. So Chicago was an extreme spiritual warfare, spiritual battleground, spiritual on the positive and negative to an extreme degree, location in the past, present, and future. Chicago is big. I personally own easily over 20 books of the occult nature published in Chicago. Researching, I have come across a lot of cults that have sprung out of Chicago, a lot of religions sprung out of Chicago. Chicago has just a lot of spirit activity going on. Spiritual activity, anti-spiritual activity, religious activity, just religion after religion after religion springing forth in this place. I think could be the result of this secret society. Of course, they're going to secretly do their thing, but they're also going to want to deceive the masses, as Roger said he was told. But we have to be skeptical. We have to be skeptical of everything this devil worship priest said. The words of a guy who worships Lucifer, gotta be a little bit skeptical of everything he says. So I think Roger, point blank, believing every single word a devil worshiper priest tells him, even as a Christian years later, is a red flag, all right? It's a huge red flag. And that is slightly addressed in the interview with Roger. The interviewer asks Roger, and you believe he was telling the truth? And Roger said, oh yes, he was. Because the truth was convenient and easy to eat up. When the truth is convenient, packaged a certain way, easy to digest, that's when you don't question whether it's a lie. The devil is extremely subtle, extremely subtle. I don't think people understand how subtle the devil is, okay? The devil is going to have 10 truths mixed with one lie. Packaged inside of those truths, one lie. And you eat the whole thing because true, you don't even notice the one lie. You don't even notice it. That's the devil, okay? Even Kurt Cobain mentioned in one of his songs. Let me look it up. I like to go off on tangents. Let's go off on an extreme tangent.